Let's set the scene. It's 1943, the middle of World War II. The U.S. Navy is hard at work, trying to out-tech the enemy. And according to some, they didn't just build better ships, they made one disappear. Not disappear as in went off the radar or, whoops, we lost it in the Bermuda Triangle. No, I mean full-on vanished into thin air. Poof. Gone. And when it reappeared, some crew members were fused into the ship's metal like a scene from a movie with bad special effects. Others were never seen again. A few, some of them lost more than their lunch, like, say, their entire sense of reality. If this sounds like a plot straight out of a sci-fi horror movie, you're not wrong. But here's the thing. Some people, many people, swear it actually happened. They call it the Philadelphia experiment. And if it's true, it's one of the most disturbing military experiments ever conducted. Today, we're diving into the mystery, the science, or lack thereof, and the big question, did the U.S. Navy really make a ship teleport? Or is this just another tall tale that refuses to die? Let's get into it. To understand how a Navy ship supposedly pulled off the ultimate vanishing act, we have to set the stage. It's 1940s and the world is a full-blown mess. World War II is raging and the U.S. military is scrambling for any technological advance they can get. This isn't about who has the most firepower. It's about who can outthink, outmaneuver, and out-innovate the enemy. Enter the alleged big idea, invisibility. Not a magic cloak like Harry Potter. This was supposed to be next-level science. The goal? To make Navy ships undetectable to enemy radar, using a mix of electromagnetism and physics so advanced it might as well have been witchcraft. And the theory that would supposedly make this possible? Albert Einstein's unified field theory. The same guy who gave us relativity and E equals mc squared was also working on a theory that, in theory, could connect gravity and electromagnetism. If someone figured it out, the military could have the power to bend light, energy, and maybe even reality itself. The test subject for this supposed experiment was the USS Eldridge, a brand new, state-of-the-art Navy destroyer escort. On paper, just another warship. In reality, the alleged star of one of the strangest, most unsettling conspiracy theories in military history. And what happened next is either proof that the government was playing with powers it didn't understand, or just a really committed, really unhinged hoax. So here's where things go from interesting to WTF. It's October 28th, 1943. The USS Eldridge is docked at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, prepped for a top-secret experiment that's supposed to make it invisible to enemy radar. Scientists, engineers, and military officials are gathered, ready to flip the switch on some next-level science. And then, a green fog engulfs the ship. Not a cute, rolling, oh, this spooky mist. This is unnatural. Neon color. It's wrong. Witnesses claim that as the eerie fog spreads, the ship starts shimmering like a heat mirage on pavement. Then, just like that, it's gone. Not cloaked, not blurry, not sneaking away under the cover of darkness, just gone. Minutes later, 200 miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, sailors on another ship reportedly see the Eldridge appear out of thin air. Just for a moment. Then, it disappears again and snaps right back to Philadelphia like nothing ever happened. And this is where the story goes from sci-fi to full-blown horror. When the Eldridge rematerializes, something is very, very wrong with the crew. Some of them are fine. Others fused into the ship, like their bodies are merged with the metal, as if they got halfway through a teleportation scene and the special effects department ran out of budget. Some are alive, but in unspeakable pain. Others are dead, trapped inside the steel. And the ones who didn't get stuck, well, some of them lost their minds, babbling nonsense, catatonic, eyes darting like they were seeing something no one else could see. A few were reportedly never the same again, and some just vanished, gone without a trace. It's horrifying, right? But this isn't just a ghost story whispered on the decks of old warships. There's a source, or at least a guy who really, really wanted people to believe it happened. Enter Carlos Allende, or Carl Allen, depending on when he was filling out paperwork. He claims he witnessed the whole thing, and in the 1950s, he sends a series of deeply weird, borderline manic letters to a UFO researcher named Morris K. Jessup, detailing the experiment. He swears the Navy stumbled upon something way bigger than they realized, something dangerous, something unnatural. And while Carl's credibility is questionable, we'll get into that later, his story sets off a wildfire of speculation. Suddenly, the idea that the U.S. military accidentally cracked the teleportation code and then tried to cover it all up doesn't seem so crazy to some people. And that's where things started getting weird. Well, weirder. All right, let's take a second to breathe, because if the last part made your skin crawl, this next part's going to make your brain hurt. The big question here is, could any of this actually be possible? The theory behind the Philadelphia experiment allegedly ties back to Einstein's unified field theory. In simple terms, it was supposed to be the holy grail of physics, connecting gravity and electromagnetism into one neat little package. If someone actually cracked it, the results would be mind-blowing. Invisibility, teleportation, maybe even time travel. But this is a big but. Einstein himself said he never finished the theory. It was an idea, a puzzle he never solved. So unless the U.S. Navy had a secret team of geniuses casually doing math beyond the guy who redefined physics, the chances of them pulling this off, not great. Still, let's entertain the possibility. Could a powerful electromagnetic field bend light and make an object seem invisible? Maybe. But could it also warp time and space so violently that sailors would start fusing into the walls? That's a lot harder to swallow. What we do know is that the Navy was experimenting with degaussing technology around this time. Degaussing was a real process that made ships invisible, not to radar, but to magnetic mines. Basically, it reduced the ship's magnetic signature so underwater explosives wouldn't detonate when they got too close. So could that be the root of the story? Some routine degaussing gets misinterpreted, rumors start flying, and suddenly people are whispering about Navy teleportation horror shows? Sure. But if that's the case, how did the story get so extreme? Because the military was trying to avoid sea mines doesn't quite explain green fog, instant teleportation, and men melted into steel. Either someone seriously misunderstood what they saw, or there's something more we're not supposed to know. So let's talk about how much of this is actually real. And if you were looking for a smoking gun in all of this, you might want to lower your expectations. First, the biggest problem, the USS Eldridge's official Navy logs showed no record of it ever being in Philadelphia during the alleged experiment, which, kind of makes it hard to conduct a top-secret teleportation test there. But hey, paperwork gets lost all the time, and people lie. But then there's the guy behind all of this, Carlos Allende, or Carl. Now, I'm not saying that he was lying, but I am saying that if he were around today, he'd be that guy in your Instagram DMs talking about government mind control and warning you about chemtrails. The man was known for telling elaborate, often contradictory stories, and never really provided actual proof of what he claimed to have seen. No knock on people that believe in chemtrails and government mind control. But where did this rumor actually come from? Most historians think it started with the misinterpretations of real Navy experiments. Like I mentioned earlier, the military was working on degaussing, which did involve electromagnetic fields, but in a keep the minds away way, not a turn the ship into a quantum nightmare way. People might have heard about classified electromagnetic tests and filled in the blanks with the wildest stuff their brains could come up with. There's also the fact that during wartime, military secrecy was everywhere. If a crew member saw something weird on a ship, they weren't exactly going to get a full explanation from their superiors. Throw in some whispers, some exaggerations, and a couple of guys who swear they know a guy who knows a guy, and boom, you've got yourself a conspiracy legend. At the end of the day, the biggest evidence against the Philadelphia experiment isn't just the lack of records or the shaky credibility of the people pushing the story. It's that the physics just don't add up. Even now, with all of our fancy modern tech, we're still nowhere near making something like this happen. Probably, maybe. So either the Navy cracked the teleportation code in the 1940s and then forgot how to do it, or someone somewhere made up one hell of a campfire story. So if the Philadelphia experiment probably didn't happen, why are we still talking about it? Well, two reasons: secrecy and Hollywood. First, the Navy never gave a straight answer. They denied it, sure, but they never aggressively debunked it. And if there's one thing conspiracy theorists like us love, it's a government shrugging suspiciously. Second, pop culture ran with it. The 1984 movie The Philadelphia Experiment turned it into a full-blown sci-fi thriller. And ever since, the idea of a vanishing ship refused to die. It's one of those stories that keeps coming back because deep down, we want it to be true. There's something thrilling about the idea that the government has secret experiments going on that are just beyond what we can understand. And by the way, I do believe that the government has experiments going on that we wouldn't understand. Probably just not ones that involve turning sailors into part of the furniture. So, did the U.S. Navy crack teleportation in the 1940s? Probably not. But did something weird happen that got wildly misinterpreted? Maybe. Or, and hear me out, was this just a guy with a very active imagination and a lot of free time? Either way, the Philadelphia experiment remains one of the most unsettling what-if stories out there, because at the end of the day, it's not about whether a ship teleported, it's about what we don't know. So if I suddenly disappear after this episode, maybe they got to me. What do you think? A real-life experiment gone wrong, or just another wild piece of conspiracy lore? Thanks for listening to this episode of 10 Minute Mystery. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps other curious minds find the show. And if you're craving more stories, but with a darker twist, check out my other podcast, 10 Minute Murder. Thanks for listening. See you next time.